Hi, welcome to the Ball and Breakfast podcast. This is Wayne Pua with my partner here, Patrick Miller. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, or if you're on Spotify or Apple or Anchor or wherever, please feel free to leave a review and rate us as well. Would love to hear any feedback that you have or what your thoughts on all the fun stuff that we're talking about. And with all that being said, hey, let's get to it. So today, we were kind of trying to figure out what we wanted to talk about. I think we were throwing some ideas on like the NBA, what's kind of happening there. But then I know Pat, you kind of brought this whole thing up with what's happening with the Tampa Bay Rays and Pride Night. Could you just give a lowdown on what this is all about, set the story a little bit, and then what are your initial thoughts on everything that's kind of been transpiring the past couple of days?
Yeah. So in Major League Baseball, the Tampa Bay Rays baseball team out in Florida, they were hosting a Pride Night, as Wayne was talking about. And essentially, it'd be a way to show support and solidarity for the LGBTQ community. On their hats, they would, color the Tampa Bay logo in a rainbow style, as well as on the sleeve, they had a sunburst patch, and they're had rainbow colors for the patch as well. In honesty, the look is actually kind of sharp. It's kind of reminiscent of the Denver Nuggets logo, but in the same sense, it also has a connotation to it. It supports, the gay community, questioning community, anything that falls within that camp of LGBTQ. And in a way, there was a good amount of support for the night, just as far as fan base went. I think they had an uptick in their attendance for the night. I think it was 5,000 more fans than they normally have, which is pretty significant, just in the grand scheme of things. So it drew a lot of interest, at least from those that follow the game, follow the Rays. Now, I guess going through this process of just going through the night as normal and wearing the jerseys. There were 5 players on the Rays: Jason Adam, Jalen Beeks, Brooks Raley, Jeffrey Springs, and Ryan Thompson, all pitchers for the Rays. Basically decided to not wear the uniforms out of somewhat of a protest. And pitcher Jason Adam ended up having a quote on behalf of all the pitchers on why they decided not to wear the uniforms, and I'll just read it right here. He said that a lot of it comes down to faith, to like a faith-based decision. So it's a hard decision because ultimately we all said what we want is them to know that they are all welcome and loved here. But when we put it on our bodies, I think a lot of guys decide that it's just a lifestyle that maybe, not that they look down on anybody or think differently, it's just that maybe we don't want to encourage it if we believe in Jesus, who's encouraged us to live a lifestyle that would abstain from that behavior. Just like Jesus encourages me as a heterosexual man to abstain from sex outside of the confines of marriage. It's no different. He goes on to say, it's not judgmental. It's not looking down. It's just that we believe the lifestyle he's encouraged us to live for our good, not to withhold. But again, we love these men and women. We care about them. We want them to feel safe and welcome here. End of quote. So there's a lot to unpack, I guess, within that quote off the bat. I do have some feelings. Wayne, I'll give you the first opportunity if you want it. I'm happy to, go ahead if you want to kick it back.
Yeah, I mean, I think initial thoughts, and I'm sure you definitely have some thoughts for yourself too on all this. Initial thoughts is, I know it's Kevin Cash, the manager. He certainly is right with regards to, hey, these guys, they're religious in their own right. Hey, they have every right to just be like, I'd rather not do this. I don't feel comfortable doing this. Just like, if there certainly are people that are of certain other religions too that didn't want to, it's kind of against their religion to take the vaccine and such, and like to do all these things that I guess sometimes we put social pressure on each other to do certain things or to live a certain lifestyle and such. So it's like, okay, they are well within their right. This is definitely in the confines of that I guess agreement between whatever the Rays players have with ownership, with their manager. Sounds like they're all good about that. So okay, good for them. You know, I don't have anything necessarily wrong, or I don't feel that like there's anything necessarily wrong with what they said or anything like that. It certainly opens up that, I guess, can of worms of, this is, I guess, one part that to think about too is like, do any of these types of, I guess, like pride nights and such, like, do they actually, I think a lot of people feel like they don't necessarily do anything, right? So I think that's one thing. It's like, what does it exactly mean, and is really that big of a deal with regards to that? I think the idea that sometimes people forget with regards to Pride Month and what it's all about, since it's been kind of commercialized, and I guess the message just has been diluted some, is that is LGBTQ, not necessarily rights. I think a lot of people were like, talking about rights for the LGBTQ community, but there certainly are, while there are certainly some things with regards to, certain rights of theirs, there's oftentimes this forgotten notion of like, how did this all kind of come about to be put together? And a lot of it has to do with social acceptance and suicide rates. I think the suicide rates for LGBTQ people, according to the Trevor Project, revealed that was at 21% of African American LGBT youth have attempted suicide throughout 2021. Amongst Native American youth, 31% of LGBT youth have attempted suicide, and for Latinos, it is 17% of survey respondents have attempted suicide in the past year. That's just 2021. So, and I'm guessing, I want to, I don't know have the data beforehand, but I'm guessing it might have been a lot worse. So, I get this whole religious aspect, but I think that, there's a lot of push on, I guess, some people on the religious right. They're like, hey, don't force this down on me and stuff like that. There's a reason why this was all kind of started, was because of that, was because of what's happening with the LGBT community, without, a lot of people uh, uh, that are, other uh, people of the trans community, they oftentimes are kicked out of their own household, right? So they don't have support from their parents and things of that nature. So there's oftentimes this lack of acceptance from society, from their own parental groups, from their tribe, essentially, from their family. And I think that's the idea, that's the message of this whole idea. Now, it's like, okay, the race players are all about, hey, we're welcoming this. This isn't in any way to, like, push push some sort of agenda or ulterior motive that we, hate gay people, or we hate the LGBT community. I think I want to say that they were fairly clear on that, but I think what's oftentimes forgotten is this whole other side of, like, why was this all started? Why why is there a Pride Month, etc. So those are my initial thoughts. That's my initial reaction towards all that. Want to hear, I guess, what you have to think about all this, Pat.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. The set of words and kind of the origin story for perhaps why the Pride Night, existed in the first place. It was to kind of, show the fact that this is a, group of people that had been kind of outcasted and kind of left out of society, the generally accepted parts of society that, most like to view in movies and, entertainment and what have you. And it's kind of a nod to them to say, hey, you're welcome, you're included. This isn't a way for us to, shut you down. And in a way, it's trying to uplift you and uplift, other people that think that, people are allowed to live freely in this country and to make decisions for themselves on whatever merits it is, as long as it doesn't hurt other people. I think the issue that maybe I draw from some of the words that Adam put out there was this idea that, Jesus wants us to abstain from that behavior. And in a way, he's calling, the choice of being homosexual to be a behavior of some kind. It's kind of alluding to the fact that it's, sexually based, or that, people are doing this out of some sort of sin, and then that's my own interpretation of it. And I think that others are fair to draw, their own interpretations from what they read too. And I think that's the biggest thing about, I would think, how this, sin came to be when we talk about homosexuality tied to, the Bible or scripture. It's interpretations that were passed down from what was actually written. And it's funny because there's a lot of research groups out there, whether they're mainstream think tanks or organizations that deep dive into religion, but it's just kind of looking at the fact that when some of the scripture was written, the fact of the matter is there was no determination that basically said love is between man and only woman and nothing else, and there's no other form of gender, there's no other form of love, or let's say just the concept that there could be more outside of what currently was, or what was currently agreed to upon in society, or even fathomed in society at the time. So it's I think it's just it becomes a deeper argument if you really deep dive and keep going into the religion aspects of it. I guess there was one piece of Christian scripture that was pulled out from a writer from the Pew Research Center. They do all sorts of societal policy papers, on a wide array of issues that touch on consumers and communities, and kind of just making sure that we're being inclusive as a society. But they basically said, live out God's love, all of our differences, lead to empathy, compassion, good listening, sacrifice, and what it means to love our neighbors as ourselves. A lot of what else comes from scripture is just this idea of, not oppressing other peoples, and in a way kind of, showing resistance to oppression is, the way to kind of, fight forces that, want to hold you down. So in a lot of ways, I don't want to say what he said is kind of anti-Christian, but in a lot of ways, I didn't feel that shows the proper amount of love and support they want their fans to feel when they don't decide to wear that uniform. And, I think religion is changing somewhat, at least in the Christian faith and other faiths too, just in terms of same-sex, acceptance, and when it comes to marriage or partnerships in that sense. I mean, it feels like Methodist, Presbyterian, Lutheran, Episcopal, there's a lot of different sects that are starting to change some of their ways, and some of those are subsects. But I just think that this is something that maybe in time will be interpreted differently. Maybe we're just still in a fresh era when it comes to the these types of issues. I mean, all 50 states agreeing to same-sex marriages. I mean, 2020 was kind of when that was like kind of a landmark piece of legislation that allowed people to make those decisions on their own. And it is fresh, it is new, so it is for all sorts of people, I'm sure this is a new thing to kind of experience. But I guess the one thing I'll leave with, and hopefully I haven't ruffled feathers on so many different fronts up to this point, but I would just say that if we had another promotion night in baseball, and 5 players decide not to wear the Negro League uniforms, would we be discussing this more on the day-to-day sports shows? Would we be more angry about that? Would we not give much of a thought to it because it's their choice, or it's not their race, so maybe that doesn't matter as much? But I don't know if that's apples to apples. I just wanted to kind of throw it out there because of where we are in the times that we're in right now. Very contentious and very revolutionary in a way. But what do you think of any or all of that, Wayne?
Oh man, I can definitely spend all night just talking about, religion, society, how we treat each other, all of the above. But I like how you brought up the scriptures a little bit. I don't know if you know this, but I actually attended a Christian school all throughout my non-college years, essentially. Although DePaul technically, I guess, is a Catholic school, but I think the ironic part is that it's is that the devil is the mascot for DePaul, for the largest Catholic university in North America. So I find that all pretty funny and ironic. Somebody has a sense of humor over there. So, but yeah, no, there's a lot of verses with regards to judgment. I think that's one thing. And I like how you brought the verses with regards to compassion. If you want to take a more secular view, we certainly can about this, of like, why are we putting so much energy on dogging on people and how they live? I think there's so much, and I hope that that's kind of what the pandemic, at least that's what I've garnered from the pandemic, is that we judge each other so much, so almost violently, with regards to how one acts, how one behaves, essentially. Like everybody's kind of against us. I think oftentimes as people in this world, we oftentimes think that we are the hero of our own type of story, whether we're not, or I think it just helps us kind of get up at night a little bit, or get up in the morning a little bit. Um, in that, I'm in this escapade to, be perfect, or be um, this non-sinful individual, right? That is trying to work their way, or position themselves in the way up to a goal, which is called heaven, essentially, right? So there's definitely all that, and I get there's probably more towards that on the religious side. But yeah, like you brought up Bible verses with regards to kind of being compassionate towards your fellow neighbor. There's a lot of things also about not judging people. Ye without sin among you. When it first cast a stone upon her, I think this was in referencing to a prostitute. It's like I believe it was I think it was Jesus that was talking about why, if you are without sin, if you are perfect within your own self, you ought to shut the fuck up. Like that's essentially I paraphrase. It's like, if you keep on talking shit about people and all that, what's that say about you, right? It's that whole point at one person, you got three or whatever pointing back at you type of thing. It's like, we're so judgy. We so want to make sure that, our tribe, religion itself is kind of like a tribe, sports and all that. It's all tribalistic, all the social media back and forth that, I feel has kind of stirred all this, kind of fuels everything with regards to that. Like, this is my tribe. I am, a Christian. I am, Muslim. I am a person that works for this company now. We're becoming very capitalistic in that, screw the communists, like all that fun stuff, right? Like, it all has to kind of do with, this is my tribe, this is my community, and I'm going to defend it, essentially. So that's essentially what's come down to, I feel like, with regards to religion and how we treat each other too, whether it be sports, whether it be arguing about Democrat, Republican, etc., all that. I feel like we have just become very tribalistic with regards to things we judge, as opposed to just talking towards each other, and trying to give each other the benefit of the doubt, and being like, hey, we're all in this together. We're all gonna die someday, so might as well just treat each other, decently. I think is, I guess, my whole viewpoint on all of that. Um, I'm sure you have allies in the LGBT community, and I roomed with people of the LGBT community, so I've heard a lot of stories with regards to coming out, acceptance from family, friends, etc. So it's like, anything that I can do as an individual, as a human being on this earth, as a fellow person that's trying to do the best that they can out of life. If it helps that I can wear a patch, or speak on these issues a little bit for yourself, then I'm all for that. So I certainly think we can utilize a little bit more empathy in our world, as we move forth on things. Whether it's after pandemic, or all this bickering with regards to things such as gun rights or whatnot, right? It's just, can we all get along, move forward, see some eye to eye on something? So I think those are my, I guess, second thoughts with regards to that. But like I said, I can go on and on with regards to religion, and how it kind of coincides with society, the world, and how it molds, I think, some people into believing things and getting that tribalistic attitude towards other groups. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I like a lot of your points. I think the one that I take away is, imagine if if it was Republican night at the Tropicana field, field dome, whatever you want to call it. Would I have less of an issue with the guy saying I don't want to wear the party's patch on my arm? Like, yeah, I'd have way less of an issue with it, because it it makes it feels like, the way he phrased it and the way that it's interpreted for a lot of people is it's us versus them. It's us straight, married folk versus, these crazy adventurers that, call themselves gay. It's so it's definitely probably rubbed a ton of people the wrong way, whether you're part of the LGBTQ community or you're one of us, me or you, Wayne. It's like, yeah, it didn't sit really well with me. I'd probably feel
Mhm.
the same way, I think, going to the, Negro League, uniform example, or, in the NBA when they do, or in baseball when they use, the Latino phrase for, the mascot, and they put it all over their jerseys and hats. It doesn't seem like really anybody decides like, hey, not doing this. It doesn't, it doesn't jive with me and my, my views on the world. And, I'm not part of that culture, so I'll never wear that gear. It's like, it just kind of comes off as, even if they absolutely didn't want this to happen, it brings more attention in the wrong way. I want to say it kind of, touches on more of the baseball stuff we've covered in the last couple episodes. It's like baseball can just not go 1 week without doing something that's just gonna sit wrong with people. And maybe this is I don't want to say by design, but maybe this is good for the game in a way. Like, hey, we're getting eyeballs back on, our content in a way. But yeah, we don't have to, exhaust this on every channel. I'm not, I don't have any sort of, true religious background in my life, or, in any of my studies or my career or anything like that. So I'm not going to break down the Bible, and I'm not going to interpret it, the way that a devout Christian would, because I'm not, and I didn't grow up in that setting. We went to DePaul together, which was great. But outside of, going to Catholic school up until first grade,
Mhm.
I don't have much experience inside or outside of it, outside of the church area and stuff with churchgoers. So,
Yeah.
um, in that sense, I guess I'll leave it where it is. But the one thing that I did want to say overall is, in society, when we talk about, equity, whether it's for race, gender, religion, whatever have you, all I want to say about equity is that if you want to get something, you want to get an equitable outcome, you have to, also be a part of allowing other people to enjoy that equity. And I think a lot of what you're saying about tribalistic mentality, I think that totally exists. And sometimes I find that people that are fighting for issues that I totally agree with won't also see other people's issues and say, hey, that's also messed up. That's not fair. It may not be my problem, but I agree with I'm empathetic to what you're going through. And I think in a lot of ways, that's what truly builds, equity. And I think that's, where I want to stand on stuff, whether it affects
Yeah.
me or it doesn't.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and with regards to Adam's comments too, about everything that was kind of happening there, I think he did uh talk about this whole like abstaining behavior and all that. I think there's then this assumption that the gay community is just a bunch of people that just have sex all the time, which I mean, I chat to some of my gay friends, it's kind of true sometimes, but it kind of puts this whole idea that it's like um all gay people are just want to do is just have sex with the same gender, and kind of makes this whole thing of like can't gay people just want to find love too? Like, what is this? Well, what are you trying to get at with regards to them? And then it also kind of puts this whole idea with regards to like these two things have to be completely mutually exclusive, right? Here in Chicago, there's churches in the North Halstead community, which North Halstead, that's the formerly known as Boys Town, right? The idea is to try to include more people with regards to that. I guess the idea is, oh, Boys Town is just a bunch of white bros or whatever that are just so happen to be gay too. So I think the idea is, yeah, with North Halstead, yeah, I was like, all right, it's much more inclusive in terms of, I guess, the neighborhood and the LGBTQ aspect of it all. So but yeah, there's churches out in this community, and it's like they're very much inviting the LGBT community to come in and partake of their services, develop that community. So it's like it doesn't have to be these one or another things. Like, and I think that's, we're going through that whole tribalistic idea. It's like it doesn't have to be. I think we oftentimes put things in a very binary aspect with regards to just my team versus your team. It can either be Michael Jordan or LeBron. You can't be one of the other. It can't be like LeBron was the best in his era. Like that's it. It's like no, it has to be one of the two. And if you're a LeBron fan, then you suck at life or whatever, right? So it's kind of like this whole thing. I feel like with regards to religion and the LGBT community, it's like it doesn't have to be that way. Even like was his name Peter Thiel, the famed like billionaire, like one of the first founders, first big funders of Facebook and a bunch of other companies and all that. But he's gay. He's a Trump supporter. He's religious. Like he's all that. So it's like you know for a lot of people, I feel like, or like Black Republicans, like you can be a lot of different things in this world. So and that's fine. It's totally fine. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to add, but I think I've spoken my piece enough to the point where I don't feel like we're gonna get canceled. I feel like we're all gonna be okay after this and all that. So, but yeah, any other anything else you want to talk about with regards to that, or we can always discuss also about like where does social justice, I think, maybe fit in sports too and all that too. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I've said my part on the situation itself. I
Mhm.
think if we, you know, traverse over into social justice overall in the game of sports, I feel like my thing is just celebrate whatever is being celebrated for the moment. And as long as it's not hurtful to any sort of, individual group of people, et cetera, if it's something that doesn't, you know, slap an American Indian logo on it, with a smiley face or something as long as we are celebrating something in the right way and there's some good balance and there's other perspectives being drawn into, social awareness issues, I think that sports provides the ultimate vehicle for it. I mean, we, create stories and we create drama out of what we're experiencing through sports all the time with, a big series between two teams and a cast of players that we've been, following throughout their entire careers. We always create storylines, and it's, sports just amplifies issues that are happening in, real time and, across the world and so many different issues. So yeah, if today's, celebratory night or, chance to put a social awareness issue out there touches on, the Uyghur population in China, let's bring attention to that for one day. Let's make it known that what they're doing in China is not okay, and that those people faced hardships, being outcasted from society, almost going through their own Holocaust in a way. And it's let's bring attention to that for one night. The next night, let's go to another part of the world and say, hey, there's something that we may want to celebrate about a given culture because we have people playing within this game that represent that culture, that part of the world. I think that that's what really brings people together. When we travel abroad or we meet people at the park that are shooting hoops, like sometimes we don't always speak the same languages, or we don't always come from the same backgrounds, but in the same way we can both share our love for the game. So if the game is the thing that can provide a stage for a given issue or a given group of people in a way, I think that's usually all positive. I mean, as long as the spin is kept positive and that it's there's representation.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the key aspect for me, is a lot of people, a lot of these organizations or teams, they'll do these promotions and such, or even companies, right? But it's like, what are they actually doing? How are they impacting the community? Are they donating any money? Are they you know gathering a group of people to help volunteer? Like what are they exactly doing? Because you can talk a lot about these things and all that, and I work in marketing, so I know the game. But yeah, it's like, what are you actually doing? So I think like one cool thing like, about the NBA, right, was like in the recent like All-Star games that they've been putting together. is that they've been utilizing NBA All-Star Weekend, which, it's honestly just a bunch of baloney to me. Or man, I feel so old when I say that, but it's like, just it definitely has kind of lost that appeal, in previous years, right? But they definitely have brought in that I guess social justice aspect and all that into it, because this, I think, previous one, they were donating to some local colleges, some local organizations within, I think it was hosted in Cleveland, so they were doing things actually for the community there. Like, so to me, like, that is much more impactful. And I don't know exactly what the Rays were doing, I guess, with Pride Night, apart from just putting that patch on there. But it's like, did they donate any money? Did they helping out the organizations? Are they helping out the LGBTQ community within the Tampa Bay area? Like, what are they actually doing that's making a difference, rather than just saying you are? Like, in this day and age of people just posting stuff on social, right? Like, that's all fine and dandy, but are you actually doing something to make a difference? Because otherwise you're just talking shit. Like, there's honestly, no difference from you than any other person that's just tweeting stuff out. So, I think that's my I guess front level thoughts is like, you can say a lot of things, you can talk a lot about things, but if you're actually trying to make a difference and standing up for what you believe and actually showing up and doing things, then it's all in vain if that's not your if that's not where you're coming from. So yeah, is there a time and place? Yeah, sure, whatever. We can all be picky about that. It's always in the eye of the beholder. But I feel like, yeah, you have to be bringing something to the table when discussing things and utilizing your platform there. I think that's just a lot more respectable too. So
Yeah. Given the Pride Night, let's just take that for example, because I like your marketing angle of it. I wasn't even thinking in that direction, but I probably should have, given, business past and experience, et cetera. But like, in your opinion, do you think the Tampa Bay Rays set up Pride Night to really show support and solidarity? Is it a way to, I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. I don't know if they've given to any sort of, charities that are tied to the LGBTQ community, but I mean, or is it a way to just attract a new fan in a very cheap way? I mean, it's like just
yeah.
plain and simple. Like, I don't know, going through the inner workings of marketing, have you seen something like that in the past, or what do you make of the nights in general?
Yeah, I mean, usually there is something. I know that they'll at least usually try to bring in organizations. They'll like have an event director, coordinate or talk to some organizations, and then try to bring them out for Pride Night. Be like, hey, it's Pride Night, come over here. So and that is also maybe one way that they can, sell some group tickets here and there too, or maybe they are giving it out. So there may be some cynical aspect with regards to all this deep down inside. Hopefully, there was some sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know exactly off the top of my head. We can certainly try to find that out. But if there isn't, then it's like, what is the point in all this? I think it kind of, if you want to look at it from that standpoint, obviously, hey, it's cool. You're showing up, you're doing something, you're at least talking about it a little bit here and there. But if I am the Rays, if I'm a staple within my community, right? I think that's one aspect versus like if I'm just some nobody, right? It's like, okay, maybe I'll tweet about it and maybe your uncle sees it. Like, oh, okay, whatever. But if you are an influential organization within the Tampa Bay community, like the Rays are, then it's like, well, did they actually do something, or did they just put a bunch of logos together and be like, all right, that's it, and invite some people within the LGBTQ community to come? Um, I'm like, if you're gonna do that, you might as well do something much more um, interactive, I think, with the community there. So that being said, in baseball they have 81 games right at home, so it's like, I think, have to do something for every single organization, rights group, and all that. I mean, that would be cool, right? That, I mean, it
Yeah.
would justify all these tax breaks that maybe some people give to the owners of these stadiums that are like, oh, we're billionaires, but how are we going to fund the stadium? I don't know, right? Thankfully it's kind of going away from that, just because of like all the, yeah, like people are like, yeah, we can't fund these things anymore. But yeah, if they were to be doing something like that on a continual basis, that's where the impact is. That's where it's like, this is actually the Tampa Bay Rays, not like, just a bunch of players from all parts of the world coming together and making a bunch of money, right? It's like, no, we're here to help Tampa Bay. We're here to help this community, this organization with the struggles that they're going with, and we're also getting heavily compensated too. That's all nice too. So, but yeah, that's my point of view. I think that, hey, yeah, if organizations, if sports can be more involved with that, it'll do two things. A, it'll actually make an impact, and B, it'll also shut the fuck up of all these people that are talking shit about, like, you guys are just playing, you guys are just saying all this and like doing all that. It's like, no, we're actually doing something about it. We're not just sitting back and making a bunch of money. Like, we're actually doing something. So are you on board, or are you just going to be a complainer, right? Like, because there's a lot of complainers out there. So
Yeah, and I guess, to your point, it feels like a lot of these nights or these kind of, themes that come up in sports, it deals a lot with the market pressures, with social pressures, et cetera. Like, this is a trending topic. So, while we don't show, solidarity with all different sorts of communities all over the globe, we will cherry pick the top 3 to 5 that are, most important for today's, conversation. And maybe that's in a little way manipulative, but in a lot of ways kind of representative of, the private sector and the nature of, corporate social responsibility in a lot of ways. It's it maybe doesn't always come from the heart, but it's kind of a mix with trying to show well so that your pockets always stay kind of full in that sense. But it was funny, another piece to this that I wasn't sure if I was going to bring up or not. I didn't know if we would get to it, but it kind of falls in line now with what we're talking about. But it seems like the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, also, pulled the opportunity for, I think it was like $35 million in funding, for a spring baseball facility for the Rays, because the Rays showed support for anti-gun laws after, the Uvalde shootings, a week ago or so ago. So it is crazy how baseball, can kind of quickly become politicized in a way in today's era. It's just like, and then maybe this, somewhat subtly was always the case before social media, but just how quickly things can get amplified and how quickly, information can spread. It's, I guess when they're making these decisions, night to night on what theme to pick, it's like, I'm sure they're going through all sorts of considerations with their legal teams and, marketing teams, et cetera. And those organizations that they're trying to represent.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, okay, all right, DeSantis, he's for what? All right, okay. Who should I be on? Should I be against him, or should we not be against him? And then should I be with the Rays, or should I not be with the Rays? It's like, okay, they're okay with the religious people expressing themselves and all that. Okay, great. But no, they want, they also want harsh gun laws. Okay, so let's not do that and whatever. Like, this is definitely where it becomes like, oh, I can't side with that anymore. Like, and all that. Again, this is like very tribalistic of everything and how we're going about things. And it's like, in the end of the day, like, is one way necessarily like evil or wrong? But to some groups they are, right? And I think that's this whole idea, is that you can't just have this middle ground. Again, it's MJ versus LeBron, no middle ground. Like, how do you go about that? You can't. And people are gonna say what they want to say on all this. But yeah, no, it definitely, sports is very much ingrained in culture. It influences a lot of people. I mean, there's a reason why people scream all the damn time at bars, restaurants, at your uncle's house, like all these fun things, right? There's a reason why we get in fights over bets and all that. Like, it's, people can see it as a unifier or just something to take your mind off of whatever's happening. So, and I think a lot of people want to get away sometimes or use it as an escape, but it's like, in the end of the day, like, people are still living, the world's still operating. Like, just because you want to get away doesn't necessarily mean that some of these issues can just, be scattered around. And that's where I strongly like do have, again, like, I have that respect for, I guess, what the NBA has done for their All-Star game, which again, it's like, this is just a fun thing. It's not like this overly competitive thing. So it's, might as well do something worthwhile with it. So, yeah, sports is influential, whether we like it or not. Like, I think one thing I hate, and I don't think I'll get in trouble for this, knock on wood. It's this whole idea that, like, oh, I just want to watch this person, the shut up and dribble crowd, right? I just want to watch this NBA player play basketball. I don't look at him to not hear him talk about DeSantis or Trump or or whomever, right? Like they're people. The athletes are people, just like yourself. You're gonna talk all these things in politics, probably. Not you, but like people in general, right? They're gonna talk politics in some dinner party, or they're gonna talk politics in in the grocery aisles or whatever, right? Like people who talk about politics and what's happening all the time, everywhere, right? So to say that like, oh, this athlete that is getting paid millions of dollars or whatever doesn't know anything about life or social justice or improving the betterment of society or anything like that, I think it's a disservice towards the athletes that have paved the way for whether it's like Black America and everything that's happened with the civil rights movement. There was a lot of pioneers that were athletes that brought a lot of light towards those issues, with Muhammad Ali and the war and everything like that, kind of abstaining from it, just kind of bring all these lights. So to say that they ought to be completely segmented, I just think is stupid. You don't say that about actors, right? Like Chris Pratt and it's like the right loves Chris Pratt and all that because like, oh, he's got this good boy image and all that fun stuff. But it's like, yeah, just because you're okay with them talking about your issues there and all that, but you're not okay with them, these other people talking about their issues, right? It's because it's that whole confirmation bias. I just want to hear what I want to hear. When I don't want to hear it, I'm like, no, get out of here. So just because you don't want to hear it doesn't necessarily mean it's not good for you. Not it's more informative. Some people just have already made their mind up and don't want to hear or listen to anybody and just wants to, this is my way. That's it. Just be stubborn, whatever. So that's the case. That's the case. You can't change everybody's mind. You can only control what you can control. So, but yeah, it just goes to this whole idea. I just feel like there's just a lack of apathy out there with regards to what people are saying, what they care about. Just because you're an athlete doesn't necessarily mean you have absolutely no, like you're just a piece of meat, just like throwing a ball or whatever. It's like no, you can have thoughts, opinions, just like some construction worker out there or some scientist out there, right? Like you're a human being with thoughts, feelings, past experiences, a thought process, right? So a lot of them are, yeah, a lot of athletes are have multicultural backgrounds, right? A lot of them, hey, yeah, came from rough upbringings and then now are millionaires talking to rich people. It's like, yeah, that actually is a pretty cool spectrum of talking to people that you can bring to the table. You can have that influence within those communities that are just underdeveloped, right? So um that's definitely where, like, why would you not want to have that input, that aspect? Otherwise, yeah, you're just a closed-minded fuck. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think it's important to keep a growth mindset as you get older and older and older, especially when you get older. It's like I think at times we want to stay fixed in what it's comfortable for us and et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
But a lot of ways life is like continually integrating itself into everything that we're doing. It's like we can't necessarily compartmentalize the things that we want in these different categories: life, work, entertainment, family, friends, et cetera. It's like a lot of that's coming together, information, and I feel like technology has allowed that to happen even more so as we've gotten older. Yeah, I mean, I just think that if we're looking at even companies today, it's just having to look at how your company treats people, and investors are calling for this. How are you treating people? How are you treating the environment? How are you what are you doing to better our world? And because you know don't look up kind of philosophy, it's starting to get more and more real by the day, and people of all different backgrounds are starting to say, hey, like it's time, and we're it's past time for you to recognize us as equals and such too. So a lot of this stuff is coming full circle, and I just feel like you got to continue to stay flexible. You got to continue to educate yourself, and stay nimble, and stay open minded to the fact that what you think is true may change tomorrow. And that's all you can really ask for. I'm not saying this is right and that is wrong, but just try to keep a flexible approach to how you interpret things. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for this list of topics.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. Well, Man, I think we covered a bunch of issues and talked about a lot of things outside of sports and all that. Hey, let us know what you thought about this episode. Give it a like, or feel free to leave a nice comment. I'm sure and all that for sure. Yeah, with that, yeah, this is Wayne, and then there's Pat, the Ball and Breakfast Club. So, all right, take care, everyone.